Broadcasting live. It's America's longest running talk show on computers. It's Computer America, bringing you the biggest names in technology with guest interviews, new products, and your emails. Listen live at computeramerica.com on any device around the world. Email the show at live@computeramerica.com or find us on social media. Be sure to check out our website for contests, giveaways, show notes, live video stream, podcasts, and more. You're listening to Computer America.
Hello and welcome everyone into the Computer America Show. We are the nation's longest running, nationally syndicated radio talk show on computers and technology. Everyone, welcome into the program. Today on the show, we have a correspondent, and not just a correspondent, but our resident cybersecurity expert, and that is, of course, Scott Schober. We're really happy to have him on, and every month he brings us stories and topics, and, I gotta say that since he's been on, sometimes we talk about, kind of best practices and things like that. But lately, and especially since, the whole COVID and the quick shift to so much remote work and the like, there's been a lot of, stories. Like we almost spend our entire hour just talking about, recent events and current hackings. It's really picked up. And and even if it hasn't, then the coverage and I guess kind of, awareness of these hacking events, has really picked up. So we're really happy to have him to discuss, just what's been going on and help us understand from a layman's point of view as well. So everyone, before we get started, computeramerica.com. That's where you'll find links, including scottschober.com as well. You can find any articles that we discuss, any products that we talk about, anything and everything will be there at computeramerica.com. While you're there, check out social media, our reviews, the podcast. If you can't catch us live on IRN, then we highly recommend that you check out the podcast. That's the next best place to hear about us, and so on and so forth. So I think that's just about all I need to, kind of get into. I want to go ahead and bring on Scott. He's waiting so patiently in the wings. And yeah, we'll go ahead and get started. So everyone, as I said before, Scott Schober, he is at this point an industry expert. He is, of course, a guest speaker at conferences. He's been on many radio shows. And, he, of course, runs Berkeley Varitronics systems as well in his spare time. I can't imagine how he does it all. But we're happy to have him here every last Wednesday of the month. Scott, welcome back onto Computer America. How you doing?
Look forward to a nice chat with you.
Yeah, looking forward to it. A lot going on in the world, but also a lot going on in Scott Schober's world. So, and by the way, I was kind of trying to think off the top of my head all of your accolades, and I of course forgot one of the most important ones, which is author, because that's how we first kind of heard about you was being the author of Hacked Again, and then of course you've put out a couple books since then. So yeah, like I said, I don't know how you have spare time, but thank you for joining us. Speaking of books and things like that. You sent this, kind of as an attachment, but I wanted everyone to see it because it's actually really fun. And we have had a lot of guests on the show that, web comics were a thing, or have been a thing for a number of years. And, they kind of take on a life of their own, and they're nice because they're timely, they're relevant, they can, kind of ever evolve. And, it's a great way to attract, kind of or not really attract, but to introduce complex ideas to a younger audience. And, so I've always liked the intersection of comics and technology because there actually is one, and it's really fun. You have your own story about how this works because, well, you are now, I guess you're now a superhero.
Yes. Yeah. I've had the privilege. I actually, not too long ago, earlier this year, I connected up with a colleague. His name's Gary Berman. He runs the Cyber Hero Adventures Network. And I've been partnering with him and providing him some advisor areas for cybersecurity. And in the process, I learned a lot about him. And he actually produced many comics tied closely with cybersecurity for the past few years. And he decided to create a comic book character of myself. And it's mentioned in his recent comic book. It's actually going to be distributed next week. at the Black Hat conference, which is kind of exciting. And he coined the term wireless warrior for me. And he put a few of my products in there as well. And have different superhero powers to combat the bad guys in the world of cybercrime that are using wireless as a conduit. So it's kind of really fun. And I'm also a weekly contributor to his show. And he's got his own cyber hero network on and does a bunch of series of micro think tanks talking about AI and quantum computing and all things tied in closely with cybersecurity. So it's been a blast. And I think the beauty of it is it takes a complex subject, as you were talking about, but just makes it fun. It puts a smile on people's faces. Mm-hmm. It makes you laugh a little bit. At least when I see a comic character of myself, I kind of laugh, and it brings out the kid in all of us. And I think that's what's necessary, because cybercrime is a technical problem, but people are at the root of the problem, and they're also at the root of the solution. And we talked about this many times. So I think to helping educate people about best practices, and that's why I work very closely with Gary at Cyber Hero Adventures, and he's actually going to be at Black Hat with myself. We're actually doing a comic book signing and a book signing together at the same event. It's hosted by BluVector, which is a Comcast company, and they have an exciting little pavilion there at Mandalay Bay, and we're going to have a kind of after the show party there, and we're going to be doing a signing and talking to guests and just having a good old time. So, and I know people could still register if they go online and do a search for BluVector at Black Hat and find out more information. Register. It's free to attend, and you get a comic and you get a signed copy of my book. And I'm not going to be wearing any superhero underwear or anything like that, but there'll be prizes there, so we'll make it a lot of fun, that's for sure.
Yeah, I'm sorry. It definitely sounds like a lot of fun, and this is a fun way to kind of introduce these products. And really, let's face it, this is a whole page, kind of contributed to you. Your personal opinion, your superhero. I gotta say, I see the resemblance. Do you?
You do. Okay, good. And the artist did a good job of it. I can't take credit because I have no creative ability when it comes to drawing or sketching or the creative side like that. But I was kind of impressed. I said, wow, it looks like I'm really tough and maybe a force to be reckoned with. If I was a cyber criminal, I'd be a little nervous about this character.
I definitely like how we put the the giant radio antenna on your back. Very Yep. The wireless hero suits you nicely, and of course, I guess you'd be some kind of like Batman type hero because again, your abilities come from your gadgets. So that's very cool. And then of course, absolutely. Yeah, and then of course we're going to include a link to Cybercrime magazine and the Cybercrime radio that they do. And I got to say that the work that you do over there, I've been definitely checking out Cybercrime magazine. Whenever I do stories and things like that, they have a great team over there, and I'm always happy to see when you contribute or tie yourself into that. They do good work.
They're doing some great stuff, and they're a good source. A lot of reports that they provide, statistics in the industry. I got to give them credit. It's hard work. I've been to their headquarters. They got a great team there. In fact, I'm going to meet up with some of them next week also at Black Hat and doing a couple key interviews with some key companies. So you stay tuned. There's going to be some more exciting things to come, as well as the launch of the radio program. I keep it in the background on, and as you see right there on your screen, if you just click on that little play button, it literally is streaming 24/7. 365 days a year. And it's kind of cool because it even has a couple of my podcasts that will keep you up at night. There's a version called Night Terrors, and you can actually hear some of those in the midst of it, as well as the latest breaking news I cover and a couple other shows too that we're doing there for the radio. It's a real fun concept, but more importantly, it's sharing information, teaching, and I think that's what the key is. We're helping one another, and that's what's so important in this world of cyber.
Definitely. Now, you've mentioned Black Hat a couple of times, and I'm always happy that these conventions are starting to, and of course gatherings are starting to pick back up. In kind of in a world. I don't want to say post-COVID, but at least a world with COVID, things are, at least picking up somewhat. And so Black Hat is on. This is, I wasn't really keeping tabs on it because I assumed everything was canceled until next year. So Black Hat's on, Defcon's on. When is this happening? And for everyone who has not heard about these, what are the purpose of these? Because they're kind of storied when it comes to the cyber security, and of course, just hackers as well. It's a very storied convention. Like it's very unique.
Yes, you said it very well. It is a very unique convention. Both Black Hat and it follows immediately after is Defcon, and it really brings in a world of hacking enthusiasts, let's say. And I think if I show up in a tie, they'll probably beat me up there. So I'm not planning on going in my tie. I'll be wearing my Hacked Again shirt. I'll just drape on a jacket so I can differentiate myself slightly there as a former hacker and pirater of video games. I have to still be careful in the world of media, but it brings together, and this is tens of thousands of people from around the world. And these are some of the best hackers and educators and researchers all under one roof. Often the term Black Hat is some guys that are doing things that are on the edge or a little unscrupulous, as opposed to perhaps a white hat ethical hacker that's hired by a company. But what's beautiful about Black Hats is they really expose the weaknesses, the vulnerabilities in the world that we live in computers, in technology, in the internet, in passwords, you name it. And when they expose it, sometimes it's for a bounty, sometimes it's for a little bit of prominence and recognition, sometimes a little bit of money, all different things. It helps companies improve technology to make it safer. And that's really, to me, the more important thing, that they're willing to put themselves out on the line there and share knowledge where there are vulnerabilities before the hacker community exploits it. And I think it's probably saved this world billions of dollars. So they're kind of the unsung heroes that don't get a lot of credit. So I always like to give a shout out and thank them for their hard work, the research that they do, the sharing of information that they do, just to keep us all safer.
Yeah, and a lot of research groups go there to show off their findings. It's really one of the best places to go to show off the latest, like you mentioned, the latest in their research. But it's also I've definitely heard a lot of stories, and especially some of our correspondents in the past that have been there. There's weird badges and there's like actual competitions to hack each other. To me, it's one of the and I've never been, but the stories that I hear, it kind of takes hacking out of, because it's very nebulous, I guess, when we talk about here on the show, Scott, where, it's like, this bank was hacked, or, this website was taken over or something like that. But there it's like, they will, they'll take your contacts and they'll put your personal pictures up on a big billboard there at the event because they hacked into your phone, because you had Bluetooth enabled and, you clicked on a link that you weren't supposed to. Like it takes hacking almost to the real world. If they can do it, then they will kind of there at the convention, and that's fun.
Yeah, and I'm honestly a little bit nervous going there because you never know what's in store, and being victimized in the past and targeted, and I continually am targeted. I could assure you my phone is going to have the Wi-Fi shut off, the Bluetooth shut off.
I hear some people just buy a phone, like a burner phone, just for the event.
Burner. Yeah. And I even thought of that, but I have so many people trying to contact me, interviewing me, and I'm going to be interviewing other people in the series. It's just hard to survive. So I'm just going to use caution as best I can. Actually, and I probably shouldn't say this out to the public, but I'm going to be doing a lot of my stuff off-site purposely so it cannot be disrupted. To keep it a little bit safer. And that's how I find a lot of people are doing it, because they realize the threat there. I'm obviously not bringing a debit card and sticking in an ATM because so many people have been compromised. Pretty much every point of sale terminal there has got a skimmer in it. The debit card machines, everything even around the show has been rigged and eavesdropped and spied on and hacked. So it's a weird environment to enter in as a somebody that's in the field of cybersecurity. So you may be reading stories about myself and others victimized there.
And certainly let's hope not. But I got to say that, and because this is your company, this is your field, a lot of these vulnerabilities are in wireless standards, and we see that all the time. Like I think even at not the last one, because I think the last one was canceled, due to COVID, but 2019, I think that's where we heard about, some of the vulnerabilities in WPA2 encryption for Wi-Fi. Like they displayed it at Black Hat. They showed like Bluetooth vulnerabilities, like really standard, some of the vulnerabilities are in the standards that, no matter how up to date you are, it's just the technology itself. And I mean, that has to be a little freaky because how to mitigate yourself, through wireless technology, but hey, the technology itself is flawed because, hey, humans made it.
Yeah, exactly. And I think often what's really kind of prized at Black Hat and Defcon, when they kind of share something that's got mass adoption, and now there's a 0-day vulnerability that they're telling the world right there in front of you, and you reach into your pocket and go, oh crap, my iPhone that I just bought is, oh no, and there's nothing you can do about it here and now today. Get ready, you're a victim. Those are eye openers, and it really helps us to appreciate the push for technology often exceeds the need to secure that technology. And I think that allows the conversation to take place and put things in balance just to make it a safer world. I don't think it solves all the problems. And at the same time, there are some extremists there at the shows. There are some big egos that have trouble fitting through the door, and that's like any show, but it does make it for an enjoyable event that everybody remembers.
Yeah, it's and that prominence, from what I understand, is that 3-letter agencies are also known to be there, without naming themselves and without flashing badges, but they're there just like everyone else. They're there to learn and in some cases even recruit people who are doing exciting things in the field. One of our correspondents, Mr. David Perry, he mentioned that one year when he went, Scott, you might find this funny, that he recognized an FBI agent, and he didn't have any badges and he was dressed in plain clothes, and they were like, how did you know it was me? And he's like, well, you're the one with the shiniest shoes in the building. Like he had kind of really dressy formal shoes, and everyone else was, I guess, running around in tennis shoes and sneakers. So fun stories like that come out.
They do stand out. I have, and I'll just say it in brief, a number of years ago when there was a huge volcano out of Iceland, I got trapped. I was speaking at the counterterror show, and it took me 12 days to get back here. Big, long story, but the short of it was I didn't know how I'd get back because my ticket was canceled, and I ended up bumping into one of the senior members of the NSA who happened to buy a lot of our equipment, and we got along real well, and he said, hey, Scott, he goes, you travel with me, I'll use your phone and your computer, and I will help get you out of this country. And it was a long journey through the UK, London, Nice, France, to Africa. So we finally got back 11, 12 days later after that all air traffic was shut down for a period of a couple of weeks there. And it was an interesting story. But the way I picked up on him and vice versa, the event ended, but he was just in plain clothes with a backpack on, and he was just in for the day. And he was kind of stranded just like the rest of us, and made for some interesting discussions, that's for sure.
Yeah, it's I'm surprised, but at the same time, I guess I really shouldn't be, because like you mentioned, that is the event that you went to go speak at. And hey, that's going to attract people, such as that gentleman, from the NSA. Like it's, that's just how it's going to go. Like CES, I sat down for a sandwich, and for lunch, the first time I went there, and I talked to the guy next to me, and he was he was kind of a lead designer for not Raytheon, not Northrop Grumman, Lockheed Martin. Yeah, he was a lead engineer for Lockheed Martin, and he was working on something. And I asked him what he was working on. He's like, "You don't have clearance for that." I'm like, "Oh, neat, cool." It's always fun to meet people, and that's one thing I've definitely missed over the past year and a half. So I'm glad that, like I said, with Defcon and Black Hat, and of course the event that you're putting on there, I think there was a flyer here. let's see if I can open this up. But yeah, BluVector, and you guys are putting on your own little event during that event. So very, very cool. Looking forward to that. Be sure to I'll definitely keep an eye out, but be sure to send a link as well. So all that being said, let's see, we got that. I wanted to, so let's spread out the Scott Schober news a little bit. I wanted to follow up on this one because this one happened about a week or two ago, so it would be catch up, and I'm sure I hope a lot of people have heard that Kaseya, Kaseya, however it is that you see it, they said that they have a decryption key that is 100% effective, and that's great and all, but now the big head scratcher here is, Scott, because this locked down 1,500 companies, millions of customers, or I should say millions of affected people, and this was big. Like, this was that $70 million ransom that was being thrown around, and then 2 weeks went by, Scott, no word whatsoever, and then suddenly they were like, we have a decryption tool, everyone can run it. It works. It's great. We fixed the problem. And Scott, kind of speaking from your own gut, and of course we have this, the Daily Swig, but yeah, speaking from your gut and, kind of what's being put out there, they're being very tight-lipped, and, they're saying that they got it from a quote-unquote third party, but situations like this, you always kind of wonder, just like we did with the gas pipeline, the
Colonial Pipeline.
Yeah, the Colonial Pipeline. They did not admit right away that they paid the ransom, and then later it came out that they did send money to get things back up and running. Kaseya, in this case, what do you think happened? Do you think someone really defeated the ransomware, or do you think that they paid it and they're being hush-hush? Because, and we have a story a little bit later about Biden and ransomware and that whole thing in that administration. But when it comes to actually reporting, did you pay the ransom or not? There's no regulation on that, is there? Like, how did they get this key, and do they have to say how they got this key?
Yeah, and that's part of the mystery of it. It's kind of a fun story, and it keeps evolving, and you hear different parties reporting it. But the part that makes me think perhaps they did pay something at first is the fact that it was negotiated down from 70 million to about 50 million. That was the asking price. Why would they just lower it to 50 million? They have no reason to do that. So that tells me there was probably some level of back and forth, be it Kaseya, or more likely that maybe law enforcement got involved as well, and perhaps an insurance company, not sure. Part of the challenge of this whole mess is that it's believed to be R-Evil behind it, which is really a Russian cyber criminal gang that has these loose affiliations with the Russian government. And after the Biden administration kind of went back, and in that other article talks about a little bit, went back against Putin and said, hey, look, you got to cut it out or else. It appears shortly after that either Putin must have told the cyber criminal gang over there, hey guys, you got to cut it out, or we're really going to be at cyber war here. America's taking some strong stands and some stuff's coming. Let's do something about it. Then suddenly R-Evil actually disappeared off the dark web, the domains, as well as several other known hacker groups affiliated to Russian cyber criminal gangs. What does that tell you? and like all their presence on like the forums, because they were actually pretty open. They had like PR reps, they had people that were talking with reporters. They were open, and then suddenly just overnight, they were all gone. It's a well-oiled machine. Then all of a sudden, poof, it's out. Now think about this. Imagine you're one of those 1,500 companies waiting in the wings saying, oh crap, our entire company, all the data on our computer networks is encrypted. We were told we got to pay this ransomware. We're trying to figure out plan B or whatever. Now you got to go back to pay R-Evil and the ransom. But guess what? They don't exist. Who do you pay? And now your data's locked up. Now you're in trouble. Now you're in really big trouble. And then all of a sudden, magically, shortly later, a third party comes out of nowhere and provides a decryption key. It doesn't seem to add up. So I think this story has got some interesting things that are going to develop in the next week or so that are going to be very interesting for all of us as we keenly anticipate figuring out what in the world is going on here.
So one, and I believe this was a story that you brought up, a number of years ago. But one thing that they did mention, and this is something that we'll probably bring up with, kind of the U.S. stance with Russia and the cyber hacks, is that they found out that I think it was this one. If the default language of the operating system was set to Russian, then it was like, don't infect this machine. Which, again, that'll branch us off into that discussion. But it shows that it was kind of targeted to anything but Russian, which is kind of a tip off. Now, I will say, and just real quick, I just want to say that reading this article, they mentioned that recent reports suggest that our continued silence on whether we paid the ransom says that we did, but we, and these are, again, kind of their words loosely, saying that they did not pay the ransom. As such, we are confirming that they did not pay the ransom, either directly or indirectly.
Top of mind for many people following recent news of pipelines being hacked and major companies having to pay ransom to get their files back.
This one right here. Perfect. Autoplay videos are the bane of my existence. Oh my God. Yes. Now, with that being said, they were able to obtain the decryptor through a third party. It's 100% effective. Scott, ransomware, like, as far as I know, it's and I've never studied it or anything like that. It's probably not that complicated of a piece of software. The bigger issue is that once it's on a system, it's impossible to use that system to kind of analyze and kind of read the code and stuff like that. And on top of that, Scott, I think that a lot of ransomware out there, once it kind of knows that it's in a test environment, because I guess the program can kind of tell, am I in a virtual machine? It will actually shut itself down. Like, it will delete itself so that it can't be studied. But if you can study this, like, these things are not impossible to decrypt, or create a tool. So, you think, and final word on this, you think that, they got a key from a third party, or do you think that they paid the ransom?
My personal opinion is I think some money was exchanged to get help there. I don't think anybody just miraculously handed it over, because you're talking about significant amount of money and damage or potential damage by not having the decrypting key. I don't think it was a decryption key that was just laying around from a prior ransomware malware attack from 2 years ago, because it's real easy to go in there and change the code and just change a few things to make it unique or different. And it just doesn't seem to add up. I'm still really scratching my head, as probably most people are. There's probably some money exchange and some threats going on in the background. And I think we will find out soon, though, because it affects so many companies and so much money at the same time.
Right. The amount of money, and that's the reason why this hack will go, will kind of go down as one to remember, is because of the amount of money that they requested. And I even heard, when this first happened, that they were even surprised, because, they wanted to hack, Kaseya, but they didn't know that they were going to affect so many systems, including, everything from grocery stores in the UK to daycares in Australia. Like, it was really businesses all over the world. And Scott, they, they're the ones holding the keys. They quickly came up with this idea of $70 million. There's no straight reference that, there's no hacker playbook that says we've infected 13 million machines, therefore we are owed 70 cents on every machine. Like, no, they just kind of pulled the $70 million out of nowhere. And I guess at that price point, like you said, either it's super powerful insurance companies or super powerful governments. I think that's enough money for them to step in and start to work on a solution. So, if anything,
I was going to say, parallels the Colonial Pipeline. Look how that transpired in a fairly short period of time. It was a little bit of hush hush. Did they pay the ransom or not? We don't know. Oh, they did pay the ransom. Oh, by the way, they shared the wallet ID, and FBI and law enforcement's able to move in and hunt down most, but not all, of the cryptocurrency, as Bitcoin kind of plummeted for a little while there. So I think when the numbers get high enough and the threat now toward affecting people, critical infrastructure, the petroleum industry, things happen, and things happen quick, and heads spin, and we see how that played out. So perhaps what it's done is it sent a message to some of the cyber criminals. let's target larger organizations with bigger payout that's not so closely tied to the government, or we're going to get our hands slapped or get caught. So they're just pivoting a little bit, but they're still going for the big payouts. That's really the moral of the story. Things are changing. The days of hacking small companies and individuals, I don't think are as popular with ransomware. They're going for the big ticket items, big payouts.
And I think that's a great segue to a story that, we try not to be political here on the show. And I'm completely comfortable talking about all facets of this, Scott, because this is not really about politics. Like, if anything, this is about national security. And I feel like regardless of what, kind of what letter holds the White House or Congress or whatever, this is a common problem that any administration would have to address, and that is that more and more of our infrastructure is connected to the internet, and more people are accessing our infrastructure, to do harm. Now, you have this YouTube video, and we can kind of play it in the background, but we're not going to be able to. Let's see, unless everything freezes there. There we go. I think that's muted. So we can play this in the background, but and hey, I know that guy. This is from News Nation Now, and this is your segment talking about, kind of Biden administration cracking down on ransomware. Give us, everything we just talked about. Give us your response. And I assume that you are supportive that more resources going to cybersecurity as a nation is not a bad thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's been a lot of talk in past groups within our government, going to do this, going to do that. Different presidents in the past have said a lot, but in this case, there's kind of a line in the sand. And I think what's neat is they created a site that's called Stop Ransomware, which I see up on your screen there. It's actually an educational site for businesses to go to, and it helps you understand ransomware attacks, the risks, taking proactive steps to actually do things. And then they also put out a kind of reward system, which, when somebody gets abducted, you hear, I'll give you a $10,000 reward, this and that. But what they're doing here, the government is saying, we'll give you a $10 million reward if you help us to actually go in and give us some tips to catch some of these ransomware hackers. So they're kind of asking for help. And I think it's pretty amazing. The government's trying to now work with the private community to actually make a difference, educating them, making them aware, take proactive steps, but also pay them money to get some help because they realize they cannot do this alone. And these are all positive things, I think. And I'm excited to see how it unfolds. However, that being said, when this kicked in recently, there continues to be a whole slew every single day. I'm reporting on ransomware hitting everything from municipalities to schools to businesses to government agencies. It has not slowed down, and that's what's so scary.
So, and it's not slowed down. And this is what I have talked about, kind of on the show and also around the dinner table, because cybersecurity is a fun dinner table conversation, at least I'm sure in our households, that the cost to the actual kind of benefit that you get, and we can talk real quick about Russia and kind of, actually, let me go ahead and ask you about that. I believe now the running theory from cybersecurity experts, not to put words in your mouth, but it's that it's not so much that Russia is directly controlling or directing these cybercrime groups, but they're letting them operate without impunity in their territories. And of course, they don't have very good relations with kind of Western powers. That they won't let the U.S. or anyone in Europe come into their territory to arrest them. So they're operating not with express permission, but at least with kind of ignorance, I guess, by the Russian government. And that's enough that it's really getting worse, for us as, kind of countries and businesses here in the US and parts of Europe, in that, hey, they can go as, they can go as crazy as they want, as long as they don't tick off the, the Russian government or the police. Hey, they're free to operate as they please. Is that how you see it? Or do you, again, think it's Putin's directing this? This is, straight from the top, and this is expressly from Russia?
I think that Putin doesn't have to get involved. I think he has to kind of turn a blind eye to it and say, hey, guys, that's really bad. You shouldn't do that. And at the same time, he's saying good stuff, keep it up indirectly.
Thumbs up,
And Biden really told Putin that the United States is going to do everything and anything, whatever action is necessary, without specifically naming some of those actions, following this string of ransomware attacks that have been directed primarily against the United States. And U.S. would start to retaliate if this keeps up. And then he warned Putin that he's going to now hold Russia accountable for the attacks that originated there, even if they're not directly linked to the Kremlin, which is interesting. So I think that what he's basically saying is to the world, this is the Biden administration, is saying, hey, guys, we know it's originating out of Russia. We got proof. We got the dirt on you. We know you're not pushing the button, but you're turning your head and turning a blind eye to it. So if you don't step up and start to tell the bad guys to stop it, we're going to stop it. And we're going to take the necessary steps, whatever those are, which is scary because some people speculated, does the U.S. have the power to take actual military action? The answer is possibly yes. A cyber war starting at the next level, possibly yes. Retaliatory strikes and attacks against them to take down their computer networks. Sure, that's all of those things are on the table. That's what's so scary.
Well, and at the same time, though, and I'm sure that you've talked about this, is that you can't let one side just escalate because, hey, now they're shutting down our infrastructure. They are putting people's, kind of lives in our industry at risk because, just by shutting down pipelines or shutting down healthcare or shutting down, water plants. Where, how far are you going to let it go before you start saying, well, clearly we know somehow you are facilitating this. Stop that. And, let's go ahead and move forward. So, personally for me, calling a spade is always a good idea. And I know next to nothing about international politics. And yes, Scott, it does scare me when you say that, kind of military intervention is on the table. But wasn't it always, though?
Yeah. I mean, really, it is. I think it's inching ever closer, though, to an all-out cyber war, is what I get the sense of and feel of. And this is also talking to a few trusted colleagues in the industry that are working with the White House and various DoD agencies. And when I hear them say, oh, crap, this is going to be a mess. Get ready. Put your seatbelt on. It gets me nervous because they're in the trenches all day and they see this and how bad it has been. And now it's amplified so much worse. And when it starts to affect, like you said, when it starts to affect critical infrastructure, it gets scary. It's one thing when gas prices jump up 5-10 cents a gallon. Hey, that doesn't hurt. But imagine now if there's targeted attacks to a water system, take down the electric grid, things that affect our lives even more so. People tend to panic. People tend to overreact. And we started to just get a sense of that with Colonial Pipeline. Fortunately, it was back in business very quickly, which I think was hard to do in some ways because of all the politics behind it, not as much the technology, but the politics behind it. And I think that's a good thing because it shows that this country at least is resilient to attacks and not overly dependent and overly tied in, because it could have been a lot worse, in my opinion. If they targeted the refineries, we would have a major problem just driving as we know it, midst of summer and summer travel. People are coming out of this COVID in a sense in the United States, and a lot more driving is taking place per se than air travel. That could have been catastrophic. There have been a lot of upset summer travelers, and that's not a good thing to deal with.
Right. Yeah, it certainly could have been worse, and that's why, again, I'm actually very happy that the current administration has stepped up their response. And it wasn't just strong words to Russia, but it was also strong words to our own private industry and of course our own infrastructure that states run. In that shore up your systems, make them harder to hack, or make them harder or more resilient. Or else, hey, you're going to face fines. Like it's almost getting to the point where like the government's like, if you make obvious mistakes and you are compromised because of something that was your own fault, you are going to be fined by the government as well. Like it's getting more real, and it's unfortunately not the easiest thing to do, because we've talked about best practices, and it's one thing for an individual to change your password, secure your wireless network, so on and so forth. It's another thing for an entire state that has millions of computers and systems and network and devices talking to each other to secure every one of these with and of course with unknown 0-day threats. It's Scott, what is the term? Like their attack surface, I think, is very large, and that's hard to cope with.
Huge attack surface, yeah. And I think from where I sit, and again, I live and breathe cybersecurity, but I can say just for the past few weeks, reporting on the major stories, the headlines each day on Cybercrime Radio, it's interesting. When I went back and did kind of a weekly review for each week, almost every story is somehow tied into ransomware. And that scared me, that these are the headlines that we're dealing with in the cybersecurity world. In the past, it would be mixed in a bug bounty. Yeah, you'd hit a ransomware. Now it's crypto news. Now it's this. Now it's that. It's a lot of different things. But lately, it's predominantly ransomware, and it hasn't let up. And in contrast, go back just even a year ago, what the payouts were, 2 years ago. Statistics I read recently, in 2018, the average payout for a ransomware was around $5,000. Where we
pennies
are now,
nowadays.
Now the average payout is $200,000. That's a pretty big logarithmic jump in payout from small targeted companies that pay the ransom, negotiate it down, to these big giant ones. The largest one on record that I've read about as of recently is a $40 million ransomware payout, somewhat undisclosed because it's done through an insurance company and they're covering someone else. So we don't even know who paid it or caved. But for them to pay $40 million, that's negotiated down to $40 million, I should say. And it's covered up and they don't talk about it. That's scary. There's now a ransomware, reported, I should say, and most ransomware cases are not reported. Every 11 seconds, there's another case reported of ransomware. That is astronomical to where we were just a few years ago, and it's only getting worse. That scares me.
And I have to say that some of that increase, and Scott, I really do feel like it's just, ransomware is easy to produce. Just like most malware, you change a couple of things, you can rebrand it. You wait for the next 0-day vulnerability that's being sold on the dark web, and you can take advantage of it. Making these things is pretty low cost for the amount of money you obviously get from it. But then the other side of it is our online activity is getting so important, because working from home and transferring data, take something as simple as, let's say, the movie industry. The movie industry uploads these, billion-dollar budget movies to secure networks, secure clouds. They ship hard drives securely from, one continent to another. And that represents, hundreds of millions of dollars of effort and work. I mean, Scott, I was going to say that our networks that are being compromised are more important. And I haven't heard anyone say that we need less emphasis, kind of on online networks and communication, because it's never going to go that way. We're always going to rely more and more on a connected world, right?
Yes. Yeah, I think that's well said. And I think that fundamentally is part of the problem. And I was doing an interview earlier on a show, and our desire to plug into the internet with everything, our smart homes, now our smart cars, our offices, you can do so much just from this one tool now. Your smartphone is so powerful. I just got a new Apple M1 computer. I love it, a notebook. It's fast, it's rocket speed, and suddenly I find I'm connecting everything into it more than I would in the past. Why? Because number one, it can handle it. And there's so much more technology that comes out that supports these faster architectures. It kind of gets you excited and you suck yourself into the loop. So if I'm any example of what other people are doing, we're in trouble. because we're all plugging in too much and we're connecting things wirelessly. And we got to slow down a little bit and say, is that necessary? Then you add into it the standards evolving, 5G kicking in, Wi-Fi 6 kicking in, near field communication, updates to the Bluetooth standard. Wireless is getting faster, better, more throughput. And I don't know about you, but I don't watch traditional TV anymore. I don't turn on cable TV. I stream everything.
Yep.
And it used to be I'd stream and it would say, your video will start in 1 hour and 10 minutes. And I go, oh, now it's instant. It happens instantly. Why? Because all of us overpay from our broadband provider to get rocket speed so we can watch that movie, that TV show, whatever it is, instantly. So we're part of our problem. And I think we'll be part of the solution when we back off a little bit.
Yeah. And as hopeful as I think you can make people that, everyone needs to take a deep breath and slow down. Good luck with that, Scott. That is probably the most controversial thing you've said on the show, because take a breath, slow down is not really in consumers' minds. It's what new thing can you do for me?
That's true. In fact, my earlier conversation with somebody, he said, "What's this world coming to with technology? It almost makes you want to go back to cash." And I said, funny you mentioned that. It's a chapter in my book, Cash in the Mattress. And I kind of look ahead to the future, talking about things are going to get so bad with technology and our dependence on connecting into the internet, paying with credit cards and debit cards and wireless methods. Sometimes it's actually safer to be old school and put cash in our mattress than trusting in the technology. And being a technologist, I have to be careful saying that, because I'm an early adopter for all this stuff. I'm one of the guys that spends the premium to get it, to play with it. But also that's part of the problem. We're adopting it too quickly before the security wrinkles get worked out.
The security wrinkles have never been worked out, from new technology and new standards. And I got to say that because and that's how you ended up with these, years ago, these botnets of, 1 billion devices, because these webcams were being just mass produced in China and shipped all over the world with, I think everyone knows the password. The password is admin, or, admin password 1. And, the idea of securing these devices, or even having no password whatsoever, like the first time I saw a randomly generated password was from Netgear, when you set up their devices, and it was, yellow pigeon 32. And, that was cutting edge. Before, it was just no password, or very, very simple, admin password. And they're like, you should change this, but no one ever did. So security is never the forethought, Scott. But hey, maybe with mandates from the government like this, and maybe with more penalties, and of course, hey, the ultimate outcome, maybe some ransomware in your system, security will become more of a priority. Undoubtedly. I
often thought, what if they established a true governmental agency that's a consortium of privatized companies that you have to use as a clearinghouse to get a said device through, to make sure that it's stamped with a security approval, cybersecurity approval. And then, because you got companies, I look at Wise. I love Wise. They make great stuff. Once you get the bug and you buy a couple of their gadgets, the cameras and other things, and it's on your phone, you kind of get hooked, because you look at the convenience factor and the price factor, and you ask yourself, how the heck can they do this for this price? When you look at something else by Google, Nest, or somebody else that's 5-10 times as much money and probably no more secure. And I think what happens is people buy into that, and you look at the price tag and you say, if it doesn't work or get compromised, I'll just throw it in the garbage or throw it in the closet, and I don't care, which is not a good solution. But people that I talk to every day say, but Scott, it's so cheap. Who cares? And it's convenient. I don't even have time to set up the security or worry about it. They say it's secure. They say it's end-to-end encryption. They don't store it it's on some secure cloud server, so who cares? And I'm not paying for cloud storage like I do with Google or other things. Next thing you know, you're hooked. And that's part of the problem. People are hooked on convenience and that low price tag, and it's techie, and they're not thinking security.
Yep. And of course, convenience is the antithesis to security, because if you make it easy to get into, then it's easy to get into for anyone. There's certainly that, and actually, I was just looking for an article that we did yesterday on a related issue, but then I saw this article from Ars Technica just today, and I go ahead and kind of shoot you the link, as you can see the title of the article there, but this just further highlights the fact that, and this was just out today, that Biden warns cyber attacks could lead to a real shooting war, which again just emphasizes what we've already discussed here, in that and Biden just happens to be in the office when this happens. We have to realize that things that happen online, they don't just affect kids or video games or anything like that anymore. Nope. Everyone has to care about it, and countries have to take it seriously. So, yep. Again, just further emphasizing from the administration that, hey, this could lead to an actual war, because these are seen as acts of war. So there you go.
Yeah, that's scary, because when you hear things like that, it's one thing when computers go down and it's inefficient. We get mad, we get annoyed, and it does have longer reaching effects, especially if it goes to the critical infrastructure, or the municipality can't print payroll checks, so you don't get paid. People get really upset. But if it goes out to an all-out war that translates from ones and zeros to bullets and guns in people's lives, that is really scary, I think. And the world powers that are talking about this are the United States, Russia, China. These are big countries with some big guns and big bullets that can do some big damage. And I never like to hear those type of things, but I think it tells me that Biden is very frustrated with the Putin regime in Russia, because he's not seeing that much action. Right. And if he doesn't up it, it's going to just keep happening. And it's like a little slap in his face. And that's probably not good. It makes me wonder, if the prior U.S. president was in power now, what might happen if these things were at this stage? I have no idea. And that could be scary too. But right. Again, this is not a show on politics, but thinking about the implications is really scary.
Yep. Yeah. And I just wanted to, kind of do one more little bit here. You have this other one that we're going to include the link to this as well. But this was an interview that you did here with CGTN. And was there anything in this interview that we didn't cover? Because I feel like we've covered this whole topic pretty well.
This we covered pretty well. And it's really kind of talking about the large attacks, the number of ransomware attacks to larger companies in the millions of dollar ranges. And again, some of the stuff about Biden and his administration and Putin. So yeah, this just kind of, I was actually hit with, I can't tell you how many interview requests from different media outlets, all tying into ransomware. As of recently, my head is spinning, and it got to the point where I actually had to turn down some of them because it was so many in such a short period of time. There's only so much that you can report on and share that's what's somewhat unique, and it keeps evolving, the story, from day to day. So I think that's why the topic is really up there at the top.
Right. Yeah, and it certainly can be very, I guess, kind of frustrating that everyone wants you to come on the show to say the same thing over and over and over again. But hey, you are being a good evangelist for the cybersecurity community, so I'm glad that you are able to make time to do all this, especially for us here on the show. You said something a little bit earlier about companies promising to do things securely when they don't really actually deliver on that. And a story that we covered yesterday was exactly that case. And I've just, I'm wondering if you heard about it. If you didn't, this was VPN servers seized by Ukrainian authorities, weren't encrypted, and these were VPN services run by, that was run by WindScribe, running OpenVPN which are virtual private networks. And essentially, Scott, and for everyone else out there who didn't hear about this, they had servers that were in Ukraine because, hey, you need the servers in the country that you're trying to redirect the traffic through. And there was a known vulnerability from 2018, not patched, still running in the same environment, and therefore any of the communication for as long as the authorities had seized these things, they could decrypt, see all the traffic, see where it was going to, where it was coming from, and see what was being transmitted, and including capturing quote-unquote encrypted communications between two parties. And again, this is WinScribe's only job is to do VPN services, and they had to come out and admit they failed at doing VPN services. It's Scott, I guess a lot of this has to do with reputation of these companies as well. Reputation means everything. Wow. You can't just trust everyone that says that they're going to do right by you.
No, and that's a really good point. And what's kind of interesting is the world is told, go to use a VPN for security. Mm-hmm. It's encrypted, it's safe, it's this and that. So many companies have joined on the bandwagon launching VPNs, and there's dozens and dozens of choices nowadays.
Tons. Yeah.
Many are free and they're junk because they actually sell your stuff and they cover up, and they really are using that as a channel. Just like you get free email. Well, that's because they're trading it for security and data.
I have to say real quick about free VPNs. Ladies and gentlemen, if you have the choice to use a free VPN, if you haven't heard of it, don't use it. If you have heard of it, because there are many notable VPNs that are free, I got to say, they're mostly crap. And Scott, I'm just saying that to handle traffic is an expensive business. Making sure everyone pays their monthly subscription allows you to do VPN services better. The free ones can handle at most 300 kilobits per second, which is next to nothing. And worst case, like you said, they actually track you and sell you to advertisers. I don't know about you, but I personally don't trust free VPNs most of all, even more so than ones I have not heard of.
I'm sure there's a couple out there that are free and they actually are a level of security and provide encryption. This now, I would never trust them, to your point. And a lot of these things are, you don't know where your data sits. It's on the other side of the world. It's scary, but things are even happening here. I did a story just this past week talking about 80 municipalities that had sensitive data that was part of a massive data breach. You may have read about it, WizCase. And there, where that data was actually stored was on misconfigured Amazon S3 buckets sharing similar naming conventions that were screwed up. And there was a mass, I think it was 1.6 million files that were compromised there. And to me, I typically think of a company like an Amazon that houses oodles of data. It's really secure. But even there can be mistakes, and there's third parties that are tied in with the APIs, and things get misconfigured and mistaken. And oops, that's all it takes. So we want to really be careful. Where do we keep our crown jewels? Where do we keep our data stored? Because it is expensive when it's compromised.
Definitely. And of course with that, Scott, we have about 2 minutes left. I wanted to get one more story in here because this was so this was so timely, and it's really, really short. And honestly, advice that I don't hear that often. This is from I think it was let's see. So the Senate Intelligence Committee. Senate Intelligence Committee. There we go. Hey, English. It's hard. They mentioned that at a briefing by security staff, he said he got some advice how to keep his cell phone secure from presumably the FBI. Turn your phone off and turn it back on. And I was just thinking the other day, Scott, I turn my phone on and off every once in a while because I have issues with Wi-Fi, and I hope that makes it better. But how often do people actually turn off their phones? It's not often. It's they're meant to be, they're meant to stay on forever.
Yeah, and I think you're right. I think the majority of people now leave their phone on. And why? Often it's because it's connected to other things. They're downloading a service, news.
You're controlling services,
email. Yeah, there's a lot of things that are going on. And then most people, I think the stat lately I read is 85% of people leave their Bluetooth on all the time. Close to that percent leave their Wi-Fi. And why? Because we sync to all our headphones, our cars, other devices, so on and so forth. I don't know how much more secure in reality it really is. I can kind of understand the reasoning to it in some ways, because
what I kind of get from it. Yeah, and what I kind of get from it are advanced persistent threats and anything that may be kind of running in the background. When you do a complete restart, unless it's been coded to kind of start up on boot up, you are killing all the processes and restarting them. Scott, I hate to kind of step on you there, but hey, the music means that we are flat out of time. It's this hour flew on by.
Yeah, well, a great conversation. Thanks again for having me on, and hope everybody stays safe out there.
Of course. And hey, I hope that you have fun traveling, and good luck out there at Black Hat, Defcon, and of course your endeavors out there. And I look forward to hearing a lot of your interviews. You are keeping yourself busy, and hey, we love to hear that. So Scott, until next month, thank you so much. And everyone, scottschober.com, computeramerica.com. Either one of those, you'll get all the information that we have here today. And Scott, until next time, have a great one. Stay safe.
Stay safe. Take care.
All right.
Thanks.
Yep. And everyone out there, we're going to go ahead and wrap it up. Be sure to tune in tomorrow. I believe we have a guest, which, hey, check the website. We'll have it up there. Until next time, everyone, have a great day. Thank you so much. Bye, everyone.